Real love does not mean letting people walk all over you. Hey guys, it's John here in the studio with a fabulous mug of coffee. I love these early mornings with coffee. My friend, boundaries aren't walls, they're clarity. We often find people in our lives who kind of intrude on experiences and try to subjugate or control you with fear-based ideologies. And it's okay to put up boundaries, but those boundaries aren't walls to keep people out. They're boundaries that to deflect what they're trying to give you so that you can stay in your calm and serene way. You can love others without losing yourself, and you can protect your own peace by simply staying kind in those moments. But first, you have to stay kind to yourself. What is love? Ha, major question, right? Major question. you know, there is this concept of romantic love. There's this friendship love. There's the love of your pet. There's a love. There's love. Love is the positivization of the world. Empathic people tend to try to please people because you're giving them that feeling of a positive sensation. And when you're pleasing someone, you're seeking approval. Why are you seeking approval? Because you're wanting that feeling of love in return. You're wanting that validation that makes you feel that positive sensation. When you find yourself doing for others but neglecting yourself, this creates a resentment eventually, because eventually what happens is you're not getting the return. You're actually becoming weaker and weaker and weaker because you're giving too much of yourself and not loving yourself equally. True compassion includes yourself. Am I giving from the fullness or from fear? Am I giving because I am completely filled? Am I giving because I am choosing to be that loving expression of self? And healthy love uplifts both, not just the person who's giving it, but the person who's receiving it. Not one being given at the other's expense. Conditional love versus unconditional love. And for me personally, I prefer the concept of pure love, like Neil Donald Walsh said in the interview in one of his books. Pure love means there is nothing inside of it. There is no place for a condition. And conditional love, it sets up the trap of manipulation. I'll love you if. You'll get a response if you do these things. That's a condition. And unconditional love honors the free will, allows people to have their own way of going. You can love someone without tolerating them harming you. And that's one of the struggles that we have, especially empathic people have, is the fact that they want to serve, they want to fulfill the expectations of others, but they often forget to love themselves. And every so often, you have to realize that the word no is a complete sentence. There is love with boundaries. It's still love. It's just mature love. It's understanding that I love myself enough not to let you harm me. I love myself enough not to give up myself for you. You can let love liberate, but not obligate. Boundaries strengthen connection. It's like contracts are designed to keep friends friends. Clarity builds trust. People feel safer when they know the limits, when they're told what's going on. And there are times when people will try to, come subjugate me in their own belief systems. And I just giggle. It's like, you don't have that power. That's a boundary. The boundary is that I'm not letting them do that to me. That's the boundary. And I can still love them. I can still have the concept that I have an affection for them, but I'm not going to allow my need for affection to turn into control, because I don't really need the affection. I love the affection. It's wonderful. But that simple distance can preserve respect. Love flourishes when honesty replaces guessing, and boundaries create room for authenticity. When you look at it from the perspective of I can just simply love without having to have a give and take in that process, it's just love. And knowing when energy exchange becomes imbalanced is important, because when you start to recognize the energetic drains, and people often refer to this as energy vampires, I hate that term. People aren't vampires. People are people. They have their own fears and anxieties, and when they're in that space where they feel like energy vampires, it's because they're in a space of fear, and they're coming to you to feel better because they don't feel empowered enough to feel that for themselves. You know, It exhausts the people who are, who are just giving that love without getting anything in return. And chronic fatigue around that means that you're going to have an imbalance. Someone that you're going to have an imbalance. You're going to be fatigued by them. But guess what? They're fatigued as well because they're coming to set down the burden on you. You can start observing the patterns, and giving more than receiving breeds depletion. You start to get tired. And when you start to get tired, recognize the pattern. Why am I feeling this depleted? Love yourself enough to step back, even just temporarily. Just step back, because your own peace of mind is sacred feedback. Empathy versus absorption. Feeling others' pain isn't required to help them. As an empathic person myself, I tend to uh, love the phrase "that's theirs, not mine." Someone comes along, I feel their pain. I understand it's theirs. That's their pain, not mine. It doesn't mean I'm negating them or dismissing them. It means I'm disassociating my experience with theirs so that I can help them. Because if I'm out of their struggle, I can look at the thing from the clarity of mind and help them find solutions. You know, you're feeling their pain is not necessary for you to be of help to them. You having empathy with awareness prevents the burnout. Before you even go there, if you see someone coming who is a negative person, exhale before you enter the conversation. And as you're talking to them, just stay in that exhaled state where love sits there naturally, where your authentic self is love. And that service that you're giving, it should feel expansive and not heavy, because you're not connecting to their heaviness. You're living in your lightness so that you can bring the light to them. You can have detachment without indifference. Detachment is care without control. You literally can care for someone and take care of them because that's theirs, not mine, and I can help them, bring them to where I am. And then when you start to be the observer, you start to observe outcomes without the ownership of them. You start to let go of it. Understand that when they come to you with a problem, it's their path that they're on. Supporting doesn't mean jumping on the path with them. Love can stay steady while the outcomes fluctuate. Love can stay steady when those people come to you with those heavy ideas. You can stay steady. You can be the one staying steady. You can be the representation of love in the now. Talk to them and say, "I'm sorry you are feeling that way." You start using phrases like that. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're going through that, because that allows you to separate yourself from their struggle. And direct honesty is less hurtful than silent resentment, because you can literally say, "Listen, I don't have room for your negativity today," and that sounds so harsh. But there are times that we need to say that, because in those times, they need to hear that. And sometimes the most loving thing you could do is be the consequence. You know what that person who's not willing to get out of that state's going to do? They're going to go to somebody else, and they're going to point at you and they say, "Look what they did to me." It's not about you. It's about them. They're the ones doing it. And the interesting thing is, people know, negative people are known by people, and their tone communicates their negativity, and your tone can communicate love, even in firmness. Even when you're being strict and saying, "No, I'm not going to allow that to happen." Kind truth lasts longer than sweet lies. When you're kind and you're truthful, it may seem hurtful at the moment, but it lasts longer because they hear it, they feel it. And dealing with the guilt when saying no is you being afraid you've hurt somebody. Guilt is an echo of conditioning, not conscience. You have the ability to say, "Okay, the intention behind my saying no is loving." You're not selfish for honoring limits. Just say no once. No is a complete sentence, and there's no justification needed for it. There's nothing you need to say after no. Remember, you're teaching others how to treat peace. Release the myth that love equals endless availability. Handling resistance and manipulation of others comes back to, you're going to have to expect pushback from those benefiting from your lack of boundaries. When you say no, you're going to feel the pushback. You're going to say, "But what do you mean?" You stay centered. You keep the eye of your storm calm, and others' reactions aren't your responsibility. You can be the action hero, not the reaction zero. And repeat the clarity of this. "Listen, I love you. I have no problem with you. But I can't deal with your negativity." And they're going to be mad. They're going to be frustrated, but you're going to tell them that they're negative, and they're going to have to look at that. And emotional outbursts coming at you, they test your resolve. You don't have to match their energy. In fact, the less you match their energy, the more calm and still you become. They feel that detachment from their dumping of their energy onto you, and it knocks them out of the condition, because now they're like, well, that person did this to me. They start creating a narrative. Family relationships and living into spiritual maturity is about navigating adult children and aging parents. You have to realize that there comes a point in history where the parent and the child become peers, and in that place of peers, a lot of times that negativity is coming from the labels of parent or child. We have to come to the realization that we can treat them as equals. And new seasons require new dynamics. As you grow in age and you come up to a new perspective, you can have more adult conversations. But it comes down to realizing that it's no longer this paradigm of that my little girl. Well, your little girl's 50 now. How's that work? Offer presence, not control. Let loved ones make mistakes. Learning is sacred. No one wants to be told what to do. They want to find it on their own. And the only way they find it is to see good examples. Guide by example. Peace teaches louder than correction.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Coffee Time with John. This channel runs off coffee, so get your coffee and tea at johnsjoe.com.
Release the guilt and set distance when needed. Healing generational patterns is to notice the inherited behaviors first, and notice them specifically around control and silence. Break cycles by responding differently. You can look at those ancestors and say, well, they were going through a hard time, they were struggling, and I love them. I don't like some of the things they did. It's like that lady in my backyard who said she set her neighbor's Joe Biden sign on fire. I said, I really like you, so we're not going to talk about politics. And she said, okay, right? I don't have to care what she thinks. I don't care who she votes for. I don't care what struggles she's had in life. I just have to know that I love her anyway, because who she is. Her experience of life is what she is choosing to put into the world. And it's the same thing with your parents. You heal your lineage by embodying the calm and showing that you don't need to carry that struggle on further. Family gatherings can become a spiritual practice. You go into that room and you hear them all talking all their stuff. Thanksgiving's coming up, baby, right? And they're coming up and they're doing all this stuff, and they're talking about the politics, and they're talking about this, and they're talking about the football game. I just go there and I laugh and I ask them what they're doing. What do they love doing? What do they, my brother likes sailing. My brother doesn't talk to me about most things because he's so devoutly Catholic. He hates everything I talk about. So to me, it's pretty easy, right? Pretty easy. I don't have to live into his judgment of my beliefs. I can just literally say, okay, that's his journey. That's his path. He's allowed to live that way. Though I see him, judging others for his beliefs, I don't judge him for mine. It's a matter of going into gatherings grounded. Exhale before you even enter, and set the intention that I'm just going to talk to everybody and have a loving time. And then when something comes up, we're not going there. I want to have a good time today. You choose neutrality over nostalgia for dysfunction. That dysfunction. We define our families as I have a tough time with this. I have a hard time with that. They can choose to have that tough time. They can choose to do that. You don't have to. You can live into the idea that I'm just going to be here and be loving and celebrate the small shifts in connection. Every peaceful response rewrites the family dynamic. You literally can change the expression. And even in relationships, oftentimes people will study and they'll learn different things and they'll go in different directions. But you can love your partners through growth and change. Relationships always evolve with consciousness. Awakening can create a mismatch in energy for a time. But if you communicate that inner journey gently to your partner, and tell them how grateful you are to have such a caring partner at their side as you're going through this change, you invite them to listen and hear what you're saying, and You don't impose your beliefs on them. You just open up to a spiritual discussion. You can focus on living love, not preaching it. I just be the love. Growth either strengthens or releases connection peacefully. It balances independence with unity. It gives you the ability to live into that idea of loving despite the stimulus of the world. Two complete beings walking together, that is what we all seek for. We look for people who want to walk beside us in life, enhancing each other's life. For that to happen, there has to be two complete beings walking together, not halves seeking wholeness. Keep personal joy alive outside of the relationship. Always remain yourself. If you give yourself up to match the expectations of others, you've lost yourself. And more than likely, you've lost the love because they fell in love with you, not the expectations that they're trying to impose. Support someone else's individuality, no matter who it is, husband, wife, children. Support their individuality and give them the space that finds deeper intimacy because you're nurturing that space. Freedom enhances trust. When you give people the freedom to be themselves, there's no need for forgiveness within partnerships. They don't count offenses and count recoveries. Discuss your feelings, but before they become hardened into stories of blame or dissatisfaction. Apologies allow energies to flow again. You can get into situations of toxic or abusive dynamics, but recognizing those toxic patterns, constant criticism, control, gaslighting, or even the fear of honesty, this is spiritualizing abuse. I'm being tested prolongs harm because I am is God's nickname. I'm is God's nickname, and I am being tested is declaring a test. Love never asks you to shrink. It never asks you to be tested. You can detach from emotional manipulation. Manipulators feed on guilt and compliance. Respond with neutrality, not explanation. Document interactions for clarity so that you can be very clear on certain things. Surround yourself with supportive witnesses, people who understand you and understand who you are truly without needing to put on a mask for someone else. Silence is a powerful protection, but forgiving without expecting a return is empowering. Forgiveness releases energy, not boundaries. You get to be the one who forgives. Compassion for the wounded doesn't mean reunion. Wish them healing while walking away. Sometimes they have to walk away. That doesn't mean they won't come back. That doesn't mean you'll ever see them again. It just means that you can allow yourself to be you and not expect them to be something different for you or have them expect you to be different for them. Love can say goodbye. You can say goodbye if need be. And the reality of it is sometimes that goodbye is the best thing that you could have done to let love surround your life. Distance can be a holy ground. Understand in the spiritual community, there are these hierarchies, these niches, these cliques. Teachers are guides, not gods. They put themselves in position of gods, but they're not. They're just people who are out there pushing their ideologies. Healthy spirituality empowers independence. If they're telling you have to do what they say, or you have to follow their diet, or you have to do these things, that's them telling you what you have to do, which is putting them in a position of your deity. If a path demands blind loyalty, question it. Authority should invite critical thought. Truth loves transparency. And setting limits with seekers and friends is a responsibility to be yourself. You're not responsible for others' awakening. You're only responsible for your own. Share insights when asked, but not imposed. Don't tell them they have to believe. Protect your downtime from endless emotional labor. You can give help joyfully, but it doesn't have to be a duty to someone else. Love respects the energy of other people. Love allows them to live their experience. And when they come and they ask, how can I be better? Then you have this is what I do kind of answer, maintaining humility and discernment. I often think that people should stay student-minded no matter of their wisdom level, no matter where they are on their spiritual goal, because the reality is that none of us know the truth of it all. Ego loves to hide behind the word service, but oftentimes we don't understand what that is. We don't understand that just being loving is service. just helping that person up on the curb is service. That smile you gave to that person who was struggling and they smiled back was a service. Honesty deepens the trust. And when you're honestly loving and caring, you honestly are delivering service. You know, it's actually more important to listen than to try to teach someone, because everyone's coming from their own perspective, and true guidance is will meet them where they are and bring them where you think you can help them to come to. You can practice that compassionate detachment while being the example and love everyone, attached to no one's reactions. You can care deeply without carrying burdens. You can detach, and that keeps your compassion pure. Oftentimes your presence is the solution itself. Offer presence, not solutions. Unless invited, unless someone's asked you for advice or a question, why are you so happy? You can remain peaceful as you release their attachment to negative things. That's theirs, not mine. Love holds open hands, not tight fists. Meet hostility with neutrality. Silence sometimes says, I choose peace. In that silence, be still and know that I am God. Refuse to mirror emotional chaos. Return negativity with unseen intention of positive and love towards them. Love needs no defense. You can live boundaries as a spiritual discipline. You can live those boundaries and realize those boundaries aren't walls of disconnection. They're they are positions of allowing people to have their own experience and not have it affect yours. Each no is a yes to peace. Boundaries test commitment to self-love. And the more consistent you are, this builds that inner trust. Trust is developed by results over time. The more your boundaries are honored, the lighter life feels because you are no longer carrying the weight of others. Freedom is the fruit of loving clarity. My friends, boundaries and love are not opposites, they're allies. Practice one boundary that protects your peace without closing your heart. Share this idea that you can be loving without having to carry the weight of others, and help them find their own way through their own path of chaos. And you can have the ability to live a loving life without having to need to worry about being the pack mule for other people's negativity. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.